I took the funeral home job because it was only 3 nights. That was the part I kept repeating to myself. 3 nights. Not a new career. Not a commitment. Not a life decision. Just 72 hours of sitting in an old building, making sure nobody broke in, making sure the pipes didn't burst, making sure the power stayed on until the property transfer went through. That was how it was explained to me. That was not what it was. The funeral home was called Vale and Mercer Funeral Services, though only the word Vale still looked clean on the sign out front. The rest had faded into gray letters on old white wood. The building sat at the edge of a small town in northern Ohio, tucked between a closed church, a dentist's office, and a cemetery that climbed a low hill behind it. It looked exactly like a funeral home should look. Too white, too still, too polite. 2 stories, black shutters, wide porch, wheelchair ramp, stained glass side windows, circular driveway, and a small covered entrance where hearses used to pull in. Even in daylight, the place had that strange funeral home quiet around it, like sound lowered itself out of respect before reaching the walls. I had never liked funeral homes. Nobody really does. People say they do when they talk about architecture or history or peaceful atmosphere, but nobody likes rooms designed to make grief behave. The soft carpets, the fake plants, the little tissue boxes, the framed poems, the calm lamps, the low music, the way every chair faces the place where a body is supposed to be. But I needed money. That was the beginning of almost every bad decision I had made. I was 28, between jobs, behind on rent, and too proud to ask my brother for help again. A security company I had done weekend work for called me on a Tuesday afternoon and asked if I could cover a short private contract. 3 nights. Old funeral home. No public access. No bodies on site. That last part mattered to me. I asked twice. No bodies, I said. The dispatcher, a woman named Carla, sounded bored. No active services, no remains scheduled. Building is empty. Then why does it need overnight security? Insurance requirement, properties being sold, new owners want it watched until final inspection. What happened to the old owners? One retired, one died. I waited for her to clarify. She didn't. The shift is 9 p.m. to 6 a.m., she said. You'll meet the property manager there before your first night. He'll walk you through. What's the pay? She told me. I took the job. The property manager was waiting when I arrived at 8:15 p.m. His name was Mr. Vale. That should have struck me as strange, considering the sign out front, but I assumed it was a family business thing. He was in his late 60s or early 70s, tall and thin, with white hair combed neatly back and a black wool coat buttoned to his throat. He stood under the porch light with his hands folded over a cane, not leaning on it, holding it like a prop. He watched me park beside the garage. The funeral home had a detached garage in the back with 3 bay doors, 2 empty hearse spaces, and 1 old black van parked inside. Beyond that was the cemetery hill, dark against the evening sky. When I got out, Mr. Vale checked his watch. You're early. Shift starts at 9. Here it starts when the porch light turns yellow. I looked up. The porch light above him was white. Does it turn yellow? Usually. He unlocked the side door and motioned me in. The smell hit first. Not rot, not death, nothing dramatic like that. It smelled like lilies, furniture polish, old carpet, cold air, and something chemical underneath. A clean smell that had been used too many times to hide other smells. We entered through a side hallway near the administrative office. "Mr." Vale moved slowly, but not weakly. He walked like a man who knew exactly which floorboards complained and avoided everyone. He showed me the security panel first. Front door, side door, garage door, basement prep entrance, rear chapel exit, all wired. Then the office where I would spend most of the night. A desk, old computer, camera monitor, phone, logbook, wall clock, filing cabinets, and a small cot folded against the wall. The camera feeds covered the porch, lobby, chapel, viewing rooms, hallway, garage, basement stairs, and rear cemetery gate. The basement camera was black. "Camera broken?" I asked. "No." "Then why is it black?" "The basement lights are off." "Can I turn them on?" Mr. Vale looked at me for the first time, like I had asked a real question. "Only if a rule tells you to." There it was. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because by then I had learned that old men in old buildings always had rules, and somehow I kept being desperate enough to listen. Mr. Vale continued the tour. The lobby was formal and dim, with dark wood furniture, a guest book stand, a coat rack, and a table with an empty vase. To the right was the main chapel, rows of padded chairs facing a raised platform with no casket. Heavy curtains framed the back wall. An organ sat in the corner. To the left were two viewing rooms. Room A was larger, with soft lamps and framed landscapes. Room B was smaller, colder, and smelled more strongly of lilies. Both were empty. No caskets, no flowers, no photographs, no family chairs arranged around a body. Empty. That should have comforted me. It didn't. Mr. Vale showed me the preparation room last, but only from the hallway. The door was at the bottom of a short staircase leading to the basement. It had a keypad lock and a frosted glass window. A small brass plaque read, "Preparation Room, Authorized Staff." Only I looked down the stairs. The air below was colder. The black camera feed from the office made sense now. No lights below, just a rectangle of dark at the bottom of the stairwell. "You won't need to go down there," Mr. Vale said. "Since there are no bodies." His expression did not change. "Correct." He led me back upstairs. In the office, he opened the bottom desk drawer and took out a black folder. It was tied shut with string. Not a binder. Not a clipboard. A black folder, the kind you'd use for funeral documents. He placed it on the desk. "These are the night instructions. I've got the security company checklist already. These matter more." I didn't touch the folder. Mr. Vale untied the string himself and opened it. Inside was one sheet of paper, cream-colored, typed. At the top, centered and underlined, it read, "Night 1 Instructions for the Watchman. Vale and Mercer Funeral Services do not assume an empty building is unoccupied." I looked at him. "Night 1? "Yes." "There are different instructions for each night?" He folded his hands over the cane. "There are different needs each morning." That sentence sat in the office like a bad smell. I read the sheet. There were 21 rules. Rule 1. Enter and leave only through the south side door after sundown. Rule 2. Lock the front doors by 9 p.m. If they are already locked, do not test them twice. Rule 3. The guest book should remain closed. If it opens, write "No service scheduled" and close it. Rule 4. If the chapel organ plays, do not enter the chapel until the music stops. Rule 5. Keep the office lamp on all night. If it turns off by itself, sit facing the wall until it turns back on. Rule 6. Do not answer the funeral home phone before the 3rd ring or after the 5th. Rule 7. If a caller asks whether viewing is still available, say, "The family has gone home." Rule 8. If a caller asks whether burial is still available, hang up. Rule 9. Do not enter viewing room B between 11:30 p.m. and midnight. Rule 10. If you smell lilies in the hallway, check that both viewing room doors are shut. Do not open either door. Rule 11. If a hearse pulls into the driveway after midnight, do not go outside unless its headlights are on. Rule 12. The garage contains 2 hearses. If you count 3, return to the office and lock the inner door. Rule 13. If the basement preparation room light is on, call Mr. Vale. Do not go downstairs. Rule 14. If Mr. Vale calls and tells you to open the preparation room, ask him what happened to Clara Mercer. If he says heart failure, keep the door locked. Rule 15. If someone knocks from inside a closed casket, do not answer unless you personally close the lid. Rule 16. If a casket appears in the chapel, check the nameplate from the aisle only. Do not approach the platform. Rule 17. If the nameplate is blank, leave the chapel immediately and turn the office clock face down. Rule 18. At 2:17 a.m., do not look at the portrait above the lobby fireplace. Rule 19. If the cemetery gate opens by itself, count the porch lights. There should be 3. Rule 20. If the embalming machine starts running, unplug the office phone and wait for the sound to stop. Rule 21. When morning comes, read the rules again before leaving. I finished reading and looked up. Mr. Vale was watching me carefully. What is this? Instructions. No, this is not a security checklist. No. Carla told me there are no bodies here. There aren't. Then why is there a rule about a closed casket? His face remained calm. Because sometimes the building remembers its purpose. I pushed the paper back slightly. I don't think I'm doing this. Mr. Vale nodded once. That would be wise. That threw me. He didn't try to convince me. He didn't offer more money. He didn't say I was overreacting. He just looked at me like leaving was the intelligent choice, which meant staying was not. I looked at the camera monitor. The chapel feed showed empty rows of chairs. The lobby feed showed the closed guest book. The porch feed showed my car under the dim light. I could leave. The road was right there. The night had not fully settled. Nothing had happened. I could go back to my apartment, call Carla, say the site felt unsafe, take the hit to my reputation, lose the pay, and figure out rent later. Instead, I asked, "What happened to Clara Mercer?" Mr. Vale's face hardened just a little. "Ask me if I tell you to open the preparation room. Why won't anyone answer before the rule comes up?" He looked toward the hallway. Because some questions rehearse the dead. Before leaving, he handed me 3 keys. Office, garage, south side door, no basement key, no preparation room code. "No one should be coming tonight," he said. "Living or dead." He almost smiled. Almost. "If you can't tell the difference, follow the rules." At 8:57, the porch light turned yellow. Mr. Vale noticed at the same time I did. "That's your start." He left through the south side door. I watched him on the camera feed as he walked to his car, cane tapping once against the pavement with every step. He drove away without turning on his headlights until he reached the street. At 9 p.m., I locked the front doors. Once. I did not test them twice. Then I sat in the office with the lamp on, the rules beside the logbook. and the building breathing around me. Because that is what it felt like. Not creaking, not settling, breathing. The first hour was almost normal. I logged the start of shift. 9 p.m., front doors locked, south door secured, office lamp on, no activity, building empty. I checked the monitors. Porch empty. Lobby empty. Chapel empty. Viewing room A empty. Viewing room B empty. Hallway empty. Garage camera showed 2 hearses. Only 2. Basement stairwell black. Cemetery gate closed. At 9:42, the guest book opened. I saw it on the lobby monitor. One moment, it was closed on its stand near the front entrance. The next, the cover lifted. Not fast. Slowly, like someone invisible had opened it with care. Rule 3. If the guest book opens, write "No service scheduled" and close it. I took the rule sheet with me, because leaving it behind felt stupid. The lobby was colder than the office. The guest book lay open to a blank page. A pen rested beside it. There were no names above, no dates, no service listed, just blank lines waiting. I wrote, "No service scheduled." The moment I finished, another line appeared beneath it in handwriting I did not recognize. Then why are we here? I closed the book. The lobby lights flickered once. I went back to the office and logged it. 9:42 p.m. Guest book opened. Wrote required statement and closed it. Additional writing appeared. No response given. At 10:13, the funeral home phone rang. It was an old black desk phone, even though there was also a modern office phone beside it. Mr. Vale had pointed to the old one when explaining the rules. "That one," he had said, "not the new one." The old phone rang once. I stared at it, twice. On the third ring, I picked up. Vale and Mercer Funeral Services. Silence. Then a woman whispered, "Is viewing still available?" Rule 7. If a caller asks whether viewing is still available, say, "The family has gone home." "The family has gone home," I said. The woman breathed shakily. "All of them?" I did not answer. She whispered, "No one told me." The line clicked dead. The phone rang again immediately. Once, twice, 3. I picked up. "Vale and Mercer Funeral Services," a man asked. "Is burial still available?" Rule 8. I hung up. The phone rang again. Once, twice, 3, 4, 5. I almost picked it up. Then I remembered the rule. Do not answer before the 3rd ring or after the 5th. The 6th ring sounded different, lower, wet, like the bell was underwater. I did not answer. It rang 17 more times. I did not count them. At 10:45, the chapel organ played. Not a song I recognized, just a slow chord. Then another, then another. Rule 4. If the chapel organ plays, do not enter the chapel until the music stops. I watched on the monitor. The chapel was empty. The organ keys moved by themselves. No one sat on the bench. No casket stood on the platform. The music was not loud, but it traveled through the walls of the office and settled behind my teeth. A funeral hymn, maybe, or something trying to become one. The office lamp flickered. I stared at it. "Don't," I whispered. It stayed on. The organ stopped at 10:52. I waited another full minute before checking the chapel from the doorway. No one inside, no casket, no movement. On the organ bench, there was a folded white handkerchief that had not been there before. I did not touch it. At 11:31, I smelled lilies in the hallway. Rule 10. If you smell lilies in the hallway, check that both viewing room doors are shut. Do not open either door. My skin prickled because Rule 9 said not to enter viewing room B between 11:30 and midnight. It did not say I could not check the door. I stood at the end of the hallway. The lily smell was thick, too sweet. Viewing room A door was shut. Viewing room B door was shut. From inside room B, someone sobbed, softly, a woman. Then a second voice whispered, "Is he ready?" I did not open the door. The sobbing stopped. A child inside room B giggled. Then a small hand pressed against the underside gap of the door. Just fingers, pale, searching. I stepped back. The hand withdrew. I returned to the office and locked the inner office door. At 12:03, the hearse arrived. I saw headlights first. White light swept across the porch camera, then the driveway camera. Tires crunched over gravel. A long black hearse rolled slowly under the covered entrance and stopped. Rule 11. If a hearse pulls into the driveway after midnight, do not go outside unless its headlights are on. The headlights were on. That was almost worse. The hearse idled. No driver got out. I checked the garage camera. 2 hearses inside, still 2. The driveway hearse was a third, but not in the garage. A loophole. The headlights shone directly into the lobby windows. The old phone rang. Once, twice, 3. I picked up. A man said, "We're here for the Mercer service." "There is no service scheduled." That was not one of the phone answers, but it had worked for the guest book. The man paused, then said, "Then why did you open the door?" I looked at the lobby camera. The front doors were open, both of them, wide. I had locked them at 9 o'clock. I had not tested them twice. The hearse headlights burned through the open doorway. A figure stood just outside, tall, dark, hat brim low. The man on the phone whispered, "Family is waiting." I hung up. Rule 2 only said lock the front doors by 9 o'clock. It did not say what to do if they opened. I grabbed the office keys, then stopped. If I walked to the lobby, I would have to pass the chapel. And on the chapel monitor, a casket now sat on the platform. Rule 16. If a casket appears in the chapel, check the nameplate from the aisle only. Do not approach the platform. The front door stood open. The casket waited. The hearse idled. Every instinct in me said, stay in the office. But the open front doors felt like an invitation I had already accidentally given. I went to the chapel doorway first. The air inside was colder. The casket was dark wood, polished, expensive looking. Closed lid, brass handles. It sat exactly where a casket should sit during a service. I stayed in the aisle. The nameplate was on the foot end, facing the room, too far to read clearly. I took one step into the aisle, not toward the platform, just enough. The nameplate was blank. Rule 17. If the nameplate is blank, leave the chapel immediately and turn the office clock face down. I left. I did not run, though everything in me wanted to. Back in the office, I turned the wall clock face down on the desk. The moment I did, the front door slammed shut. The hearse headlights vanished from the monitor. The driveway camera showed nothing. No hearse, no tire tracks, no figure. The chapel camera showed no casket. At 12:28, the garage camera showed 3 hearses. Rule 12. The garage contains 2 hearses. If you count 3, return to the office and lock the inner door. I was already in the office. I counted carefully on the monitor. 1 hearse, 2 hearses, and between them, where there had been empty floor, a third. Older, longer, black curtains in the rear windows. I locked the inner office door. Something in the garage camera moved. The rear door of the third hearse opened by itself. A casket began sliding out. Not carried, not pushed, sliding. The camera feed cut to static before I saw more. At 1:16, the basement preparation room light came on. The basement camera had been black all night. Suddenly it showed the bottom of the stairs in harsh white light. The preparation room door stood closed. The frosted glass glowed from inside. Rule 13. If the basement preparation room light is on, call Mr. Vale. Do not go downstairs. I called the number he had left. He answered on the fourth ring. Vale. The preparation room light is on. Silence. Then, are you upstairs? Yes. Good. Do I turn it off? No. What do I do? Look at the monitor. Is the door closed? Yes. Is there anyone standing outside it? I leaned closer. The stairwell looked empty. No. Mr. Vale exhaled. Then wait. For what? For whoever turns it off. The line crackled. From the basement monitor, I heard nothing. But through the phone, I heard a metal tray clatter. I whispered, "What happened to Clara Mercer?" Mr. Vale went very quiet. "I have not told you to open the preparation room. I know. Then do not ask." His voice lowered. "If I call back and tell you to open it, ask me then." The line went dead. On the basement monitor, a shadow moved behind the frosted glass. Long, bent, working over a table. At 1:40, the embalming machine started running. I had never heard an embalming machine before, but I knew instantly. A low mechanical pump, wet, rhythmic, from the basement. Rule 20. If the embalming machine starts running, unplug the office phone and wait for the sound to stop. I unplugged the old phone. It rang anyway. Not from the phone itself, from inside the wall behind it. The embalming machine pumped below. The wall phone rang. The basement light glowed. I sat at the desk and waited. On the monitor, the preparation room door slowly opened. Just an inch, then another. The machine kept pumping. The phone rang inside the wall. A hand reached from the preparation room doorway and gripped the frame. It wore a white glove, then another hand. A person leaned out. No, not a person. A body, wrapped in a white sheet from shoulders to feet, head covered, moving upright without bending properly. It stepped into the basement hallway. The embalming machine stopped. The wall phone stopped ringing. I did not move. The sheet-covered figure turned its covered head toward the camera. Then the basement light went out. At 2:17, I remembered the portrait. Too late, the lobby fireplace sat opposite the guest book, under a large oil portrait of the funeral home founders. I had barely looked at it during the tour. An old man and woman in black, husband and wife, probably. Rule 18. At 2:17 a.m., do not look at the portrait above the lobby fireplace. I was in the office. The lobby monitor was directly in front of me. At 2:17, the camera zoomed in by itself. On the portrait, I shut my eyes, but not before I saw the painted woman turn her head. The monitor crackled. A voice from the speakers said, "Late." I kept my eyes closed. The office lamp went out. Rule 5. Keep the office lamp on all night. If it turns off by itself, sit facing the wall until it turns back on. Eyes still closed, I turned my chair toward the wall. The room was black. Behind me, the monitor speakers hissed. A woman's dress rustled, not from the monitor, from inside the office. Someone stepped around the desk. Slowly, I faced the wall. The woman from the portrait whispered, "We need the room." I said nothing. A cold hand touched the back of my neck. "Watchman." I kept facing the wall. "The family is here." No answer. "The deceased is waiting." No answer. The director is late. No answer. Her hand slid away. The office lamp turned back on. I waited 3 full breaths before turning. The room was empty. On the desk, the rule sheet had changed. Not all of it, only the heading. Night 1 instructions. Now read, first viewing instructions. I did not touch it for almost 10 minutes. At 2:41, the cemetery gate opened by itself. On the rear camera, the iron gate at the bottom of the cemetery hill swung inward. Rule 19. If the cemetery gate opens by itself, count the porch lights. There should be 3. I switched to the porch feed. 1 porch light above the front doors, 1 beside the ramp, 1 near the side entrance. 3. Good. Then a 4th light turned on, high in the 2nd floor window, a room Mr. Vale had not shown me. The cemetery gate remained open. Figures moved among the headstones, not walking down, walking up, away from the funeral home. That felt wrong. Then I realized they were not leaving. They were making room. At 3:03, the office door unlocked. I had locked it. I heard the click. The handle turned. I stood and backed toward the filing cabinets. The door opened 6 inches. A little boy in a black suit stood outside. Maybe 7, hair combed too neatly, face powdered pale. He looked at me with serious eyes. Is my mother ready? Rule 7 covered viewing calls. Rule 15 covered caskets. Nothing covered children at the office door. I said, "The family has gone home." His expression collapsed. "No," he whispered. "They left me here." The hallway behind him stretched farther than it should have. Behind him, I saw chairs lined along the walls, people sitting in funeral clothes, dozens, maybe hundreds, all waiting quietly. The boy stepped closer. I shut the office door in his face. Not slammed, shut, then locked it. From the other side, he whispered, "That was rude." At 4:12, I found the casket in viewing room A. I had not gone in. I saw it on the monitor. It sat in the center of the room, closed, with no flowers around it. The lamps on either side glowed softly. A guest chair had been pulled up beside it. Someone sat in that chair. Mr. Vale. At least it looked like him. Same black coat, same cane across his knees. He sat facing the casket, head bowed. I called his number. He answered. "Vale." I looked at the monitor. The Mr. Vale in viewing room A did not move. "There is someone in viewing room A who looks like you. Are you in the office?" "Yes." "Stay there." "Is it you?" "No." The figure on the monitor lifted its head. It looked toward the camera. "Mr." Vale on the phone said, "Do not let him see you watching." I switched the monitor off. Not all monitors, just that feed. The phone line crackled. "What does he want?" Mr. Vale's voice sounded far away. "The same thing I do." "What is that?" "To be finished." The line went dead. At 4:45, the office lamp flickered, but did not go out. The guest book opened again on the lobby monitor. The pen moved by itself. This time, I stayed where I was. The rule said if it opened, write "No service scheduled" and close it. I had already done that once. Did the rule apply every time? Probably. I went to the lobby. The guest book page was no longer blank. Names filled every line. Some old-fashioned, some modern, some written in shaky script, some in block letters. At the bottom, the pen waited. I wrote "No service scheduled." The ink bled through the page. Every name above mine crossed itself out. Then a new name appeared under my line, Clara Mercer. The pen rolled off the stand. From the basement, a woman screamed. At 5:15, Mr. Vale called the office phone. The old phone was still unplugged. It rang anyway, once, twice, 3. I picked up. Mr. Vale said, "Open the preparation room." My body went cold. Rule 14. If Mr. Vale calls and tells you to open the preparation room, ask him what happened to Clara Mercer. If he says, "Heart failure," keep the door locked. "What happened to Clara Mercer?" Silence. Then Mr. Vale said, "Heart failure." I hung up. The phone rang again. Once, twice, 3. I picked up. Mr. Vale said, "Open the preparation room." "What happened to Clara Mercer?" This time, he whispered, "I did." I stopped breathing. "Mr. Vale, do not open it," he said. Do not open it, no matter what my voice says next." Static filled the line. Then his voice became calm again. Professional. "Open the preparation room." I hung up. The basement camera came on. The preparation room door stood open. A woman in a white funeral dress stood at the bottom of the stairs, looking up at the camera. Her chest did not move. Her eyes were open. In one hand, she held tomorrow's rule sheet. At 5:55, the building went quiet. Not normal quiet, finished quiet. Like a service had ended and everyone had gone to their cars. The office clock was still face down. The lamp was on. The guest book was closed. The chapel was empty. The basement camera was black again. The sun had not risen yet, but the windows had begun to gray. At exactly 6 a.m., the south side door unlocked by itself. My shift was over. I did not run. I wanted to, but running out of a funeral home at dawn felt like giving it one last laugh. I gathered my jacket, keys, phone, and the black folder. Then I remembered Rule 21. When morning comes, read the rules again before leaving. I looked down at the sheet. The heading had changed again. Not Night 1, not First Viewing. Now it read, Night 2. Instructions revised by the deceased. Several rules had changed. Rule 1 now said, "Do not enter alone." Rule 3 said, "If the guest book opens, do not write in it. Names are binding after the first viewing." Rule 9 said, "Viewing room B may be entered only between 11:30 p.m. and midnight." Rule 14 said, "If Mr. Vale calls and tells you to open the preparation room, ask him where Clara Mercer's ring is. If he says, 'buried with her,' he is lying." Rule 18 said, "At 2:17 a.m., look at the portrait, but do not blink until the woman looks away." Rule 21 was no longer about mourning. It said, "Bring flowers." At the bottom, in handwriting that looked wet, a new rule had been added. Rule 22. If you return for the second night, do not let the watchman from the first night inside. I read that line again. Then I heard knocking from the south side door. 3 gentle taps. Tap, tap, tap. I looked at the security monitor. Outside the staff entrance, in the pale morning light, stood me. Same jacket, same tired face, same keys in hand. And the version of me outside smiled like he had been waiting all night to be relieved. The version of me outside the south door smiled through the camera. Same jacket, same dark circles under the eyes, same cheap black work boots, same security badge clipped crooked to the front of the coat. He stood in the pale morning light like he belonged there, one hand raised toward the buzzer, waiting to be let in. I did not move. The real me, if I was still allowed to call myself that, stood inside the office with the Night 2 rules shaking in my hands. Rule 22. If you return for the second night, do not let the watchman from the first night inside. The thing outside knocked again. Tap, tap, tap. Not urgent, not angry, patient. Like it knew I would eventually have to open the door if I wanted to leave. The south side door was my only approved exit after sundown, but the sun was coming up now. That should have changed things. It didn't feel like it had. The camera feed flickered. For one frame, the person outside was not me. It was a dark, folded shape wearing my outline like a coat. Then it was me again. He leaned closer to the door camera and mouthed something. No audio came through, but I knew the words. Long night? The office phone rang. Once, twice, three. I picked it up before I could think better of it. Mr. Vale's voice came through, low and strained. Are you still inside? Yes. Is someone at the south door? Yes. Does he look like you? My throat tightened. Yes. Do not let him in. I gathered that. Good. That word had started to feel like a nail being tapped into wood. How do I get out? I asked. Mr. Vale did not answer immediately. On the monitor, the thing wearing my face looked down at its watch. My watch. Then it looked back into the camera and smiled wider. Mr. Vale said, "Leave through the chapel." That wasn't in the rules. It wasn't morning when the rules were written. The chapel had a casket in it. Not now. I checked the chapel camera. Empty rows, empty platform. No casket, no organ movement, no mourners, just pale dawn leaking through stained glass. What about the front doors? Do not use the front doors. Why not? Because the house opened them once for you. It will remember. The thing outside pressed one palm flat against the south door camera. The image blurred around the lines of its hand. I looked at my own palm, same shape, same old burn scar near the thumb. "Mr. Vale," I said, "what is that thing?" His voice came back colder. "A replacement. For who? For whoever leaves incorrectly." The camera feed from the south door went black. The knock came again. This time I heard it through the building. Tap, tap, tap. Mr. Vale said, "Go now, chapel rear exit. Do not look at the portrait. Do not stop at the guest book. Do not answer if it calls from behind you." What if it uses my voice? Especially then. The line clicked dead. I took the black folder, the Night 2 instructions, my phone, and my keys. I left the office lamp on. I don't know why. Maybe because Rule 5 from Night 1 had saved me once, and even though the rules had changed, I couldn't bring myself to abandon a lit lamp in a funeral home. The hallway outside the office was empty. The smell of lilies had faded, replaced by old carpet and cold air. I passed the guest book without looking at it. It opened as I walked by. The pages fluttered. A pen rolled across the stand and dropped to the floor. Behind me, in my own voice, someone said, "You forgot to sign out." I kept walking. The lobby portrait above the fireplace faced the room. I kept my eyes on the carpet. The painted woman whispered, "Rude boy." I entered the chapel. Dawn made the stained glass windows glow faintly blue and red. The rows of chairs sat in perfect order. The organ was silent. The platform was empty. At the back of the chapel, behind a curtain, was the rear exit Mr. Vale had mentioned. It led to a small concrete landing facing the cemetery hill. The door had 3 locks, one deadbolt, one chain, one little hook latch, the kind you would put on a garden shed. I unlocked the deadbolt. The chapel organ played one note. I froze. Rule 4 from Night 1 said not to enter the chapel until music stopped. I was already inside. Night 2 had not mentioned the organ. The organ played another note, then another. Slowly, the start of a funeral hymn filled the chapel. Behind me, the front aisle creaked. Someone had entered. I did not turn. My own voice called softly from the chapel doors. "You're leaving before the service?" I opened the chain. The hymn grew louder. The voice came closer. "You can't leave before the family arrives." I lifted the hook latch. A hand touched my shoulder. Not cold, warm. My hand, my grip. I shoved the rear door open and stumbled outside. Morning air hit me so hard I almost cried. The cemetery behind Vale and Mercer sloped upward into wet grass and old headstones. The sky was gray. Birds made normal morning sounds. A truck passed somewhere on the road beyond the funeral home. Normal sounds, living sounds. The door slammed shut behind me. I turned. The chapel windows were dark. No one stood inside. My car was still parked near the garage, but I did not walk around the building toward it. The thing at the south door would be waiting there, or the funeral home would open some new invitation. Instead, I climbed the cemetery hill and came down on the church side, circled the block, and approached my car from the street. When I reached the parking lot, the south door was closed. No one stood outside it, but on the pavement in front of the door, written in condensation that should not have lasted in morning air, were two words: shift covered. I drove home with the radio off and the windows down. I told myself I was quitting. I told myself that the whole drive. I said it out loud at red lights. I'm not going back. By the time I reached my apartment, I believed it for almost 5 minutes. Then Carla from the security company called. "You made it through the first shift," she said. Not "good morning," not "how did it go?" You made it through. I'm not doing the second. She was silent. "Carla, you signed for 3 nights. I signed a security contract, not whatever that was." Another pause. Then she said, "Did Mr. Vale give you the morning revision?" My blood went cold. "You know about that? Did he give it to you?" "Yes." "Then you know what to bring. Flowers. White ones if you can." I laughed once. It sounded wrong even to me. "You people are insane." "Probably." That answer stopped me. Carla continued, quieter now. "The contract pays only after completion." "I don't care. You will when they invoice the breach penalty." I checked my email while she was still on the phone. There it was. The contract I had signed electronically without reading closely enough. 3-night completion clause. Emergency vacancy coverage. Site-specific risk acknowledgement. Penalty for abandonment after first shift. A number bigger than the pay, bigger than rent, bigger than anything I could survive that month. The funeral home had not needed chains to pull me back. It had paperwork. That felt almost more evil. Carla said, "Don't go alone." I saw that rule. Good. Who am I supposed to bring? A priest? No clergy. Why? Because if they start praying in the wrong room, the house treats it like a service. I sat on the edge of my bed and covered my eyes. Then who? Someone living who knows your name and won't answer to it. That makes no sense. It will. I thought of my brother, Paul. No, absolutely not. I had already borrowed money from him twice that year. Dragging him into a funeral home that wrote rules for itself was not an option. I'm not bringing family. Smart. Then who? Carla exhaled. There's a day custodian. Name is Teresa Locke. She worked there before the closure. She knows the rooms. She won't stay past midnight, but she can enter with you. Why would she agree? She already did. Of course she did. What is this place? I asked. Carla didn't answer for so long, I thought she had hung up. Then she said, "It was a family business for 111 years. That sounds wholesome until you remember families are the oldest haunted things on earth." The line went dead. I slept for maybe 3 hours. I dreamed of a guest book opening beside my bed. Every line had my name written in different handwriting. When I woke, it was late afternoon. On my kitchen table sat the night 2 instructions. I did not remember bringing them in. The rules had changed again. Not fully, just one line at the bottom. Rule 23. The flowers are not for the dead. I stared at that sentence for a long time. Then I went to a grocery store and bought white flowers. Not roses, not lilies. Absolutely not lilies. I bought white carnations because they were cheap, and because something about bringing lilies back into that building felt like carrying matches into a gas leak. At 8:12 p.m., I pulled into Vale and Mercer's side lot. A woman waited under the south porch light. She was in her 50s, short, broad-shouldered, wearing a gray coat and rubber-soled shoes. Her hair was pulled into a tight bun. In one hand, she held a mop handle like a walking stick. In the other, she held a small paper bag. Teresa Locke looked me up and down as I got out. "You're the new watchman?" "Marcus." "I know. Nobody ever said nice to meet you at these places." She looked at the carnations. "Good, not lilies." "That mattered?" "Everything matters once a house starts keeping score." The porch light above us was still white. Teresa checked her watch. "Rules?" I handed her the night 2 sheet. She read quickly, lips pressed tight. When she reached the last line, her expression changed. "The flowers are not for the dead," she read. "You know what that means?" "Maybe." "That's not comforting. Comfort isn't useful in funeral homes." The porch light turned yellow at 8:39. Teresa took a breath. "Unlock it." "Me?" "Your watchman." I unlocked the south side door. Before opening it, I looked at her. "Are you alive?" She rolled her eyes. "For now." "Say my name." "Marcus Hale." "My full name." "Correct." "What's the date?" "October 18th." "Correct." She held my gaze. "Your turn." "Teresa Locke, October 18th." She nodded. "Good enough." We entered together. The building smelled different on the second night. Still lilies, still polish, still old carpet. But underneath that was something warmer. Wax, dust, breath, as if people had been standing inside all day. The office lamp was on, exactly as I had left it. The black folder sat centered on the desk. Beside it was a second bouquet of white carnations, identical to mine. Teresa saw it and swore under her breath. "What? House brought its own. Is that bad? It means it knows the custom." "What custom?" She took both bouquets, mine and the one from the desk, and compared them. Mine had a grocery store sticker on the plastic. The other had no wrapping, no rubber band, no cut stems. The flowers simply ended in black wet roots. She tossed the rooted bouquet into the office trash can. The trash can tipped over by itself. The flowers rolled out. Teresa picked them up again and shoved them into the desk drawer, then locked it with a key from her pocket. "Do not give anything the house provides unless a rule tells you to." I added that to the margin of the sheet. Rule 24. Do not give anything the house provides unless a rule tells you to. Teresa looked at my handwriting. Careful adding rules. I thought that was how you survive. It's also how you agree to keep playing. At 9 o'clock, we checked the front doors. Locked. I did not test them twice. The guest book was closed. I did not touch it. The chapel was empty. No casket, no organ. Viewing room A was empty. Viewing room B was closed. Teresa paused outside room B. Tonight the rule says it may be entered only between 11:30 and midnight. Yes. Last night it said not to enter then? Yes. She nodded like that confirmed something terrible. What's in room B? Regret with lamps. Can you be more specific? No. At 9:26, the funeral home phone rang. Once, twice, 3. I picked up. Vale and Mercer Funeral Services. A woman asked, "Is viewing still available?" I checked Night 2 rules. Rule 7 had changed. It now said, if a caller asks whether viewing is still available, ask who they came to see. I said, "Who did you come to see?" The woman whispered, "Myself." Teresa's head snapped toward me. She mouthed, "Hang up." I hung up. The phone rang again. Once, twice, 3. I picked up. A man asked, "Is burial still available?" Rule 8 still said, "Hang up." I did. The third call came at 9:31. 3 rings. I answered. A child said, "Did he bring flowers?" I looked at the carnations on the desk. "Yes," the child said. "Not for us," then hung up. Teresa was pale. "That was Clara's boy. Clara Mercer had a son?" "No." "Then why?" "Because she wanted one." At 10:03, the chapel organ played. Night 2 had no organ rule. Teresa took the rule sheet and scanned it. Nothing. The hymn was different tonight. Lighter, almost celebratory. The chapel monitor showed the organ keys moving by themselves. Then the chairs began to fill. Not all at once. Slowly, figures appeared in the seats, one by one, dressed in black. Men in suits, women with veils, children in polished shoes. None had faces on the camera, just pale blurs above collars. Teresa whispered, "Memorial. For who? Depends who gives it shape." The organ stopped. The figures remained seated. On the platform, a framed photograph appeared on an easel. The monitor flickered before I could see the face clearly. Teresa grabbed my arm. "Don't zoom. I wasn't going to." "You were thinking it." The office lamp flickered. I turned my back to the monitor until it steadied. At 10:40, we smelled lilies in the hallway. Rule 10 had changed. If you smell lilies in the hallway, open only the door with no shadow beneath it. I hated that. The hallway outside the viewing rooms was dim. Room A had a thin shadow under the door. Room B had none. Teresa looked at the clock. 10:40. Rule 9 said Room B may be entered only between 11:30 and midnight. Rule 10 said open only the door with no shadow beneath it. Conflicting rules again. Teresa whispered, "Morning rules outrank smell rules." "So we don't open Room B?" "Not yet." The lily smell thickened. Room A's shadow shifted. Room B remained shadowless. A soft knock came from inside Room B. Tap, tap, tap. Teresa took the mop handle in both hands. I said, "We're not opening it." The knock came again. Then Clara Mercer's voice whispered from behind the door. "You brought flowers." Teresa's jaw tightened. "Not yet," the voice said. "I can smell them." We backed away. The lily smell followed us all the way to the office. At 11:30, we entered viewing room B. I carried the carnations. Teresa carried the mop handle and the Night 2 instructions. The door opened easily. The room was colder than the rest of the funeral home. It had the same soft lamps as before, the same framed landscapes, the same chairs arranged around a central space where a casket should have been. But tonight, there was no casket. There was a vanity, an old wooden dressing table with a round mirror. A woman sat before it. Her back faced us. Dark hair pinned up. White funeral dress, hands folded in her lap. Clara Mercer. I knew before Teresa whispered her name. "Clara." The woman at the vanity lifted her head. In the mirror, her face was covered by a veil. not black, white, bridal, funeral, both. Rule 14 had changed. If Mr. Vale calls and tells you to open the preparation room, ask him where Clara Mercer's ring is. If he says, buried with her, he is lying. No call yet. No preparation room. But Clara raised one hand. Her left ring finger was missing. Not bare. Missing. Cut cleanly at the knuckle. The flowers in my hands began to wilt. Teresa whispered, set them on the chair, not the vanity. How do you know? Because she can reach the vanity. I placed the carnations on the nearest chair. The mirror, Clara turned her veiled face toward me. A voice came from behind the veil. Are those for him? No, Teresa said. Clara's shoulders stiffened. The mirror fogged. Words appeared across it. Liar. Teresa stepped forward. White flowers for the living. That was the custom, for the ones who had to stay behind and keep breathing. Clara's hands curled in her lap. The room lights flickered. Every framed landscape changed. Instead of fields and lakes, they showed the preparation room downstairs. Steel table, white tile, a tray of instruments, a ring lying in a kidney dish, the missing finger beside it. I swallowed hard. Where is her ring? Teresa did not look away from the mirror. Mr. Vale took it. The vanity mirror cracked. Clara whispered, he promised. Teresa said, he lied. The lamps went out. In the dark, Clara stood. I heard fabric move. Teresa grabbed my wrist and pulled me backward. The room lights came back on. The vanity chair was empty. The mirror showed Clara standing behind us. I did not turn. Teresa whispered, walk backward. We did. In the mirror, Clara followed. Her veil hung over her face. Her missing finger dripped black fluid onto the carpet. Step by backward step, we reached the door. The clock in the hallway struck midnight. Viewing room B's door slammed shut between us and the mirror. From inside, Clara screamed. The flowers remained in the room. I hoped that mattered. At 12:16, a hearse pulled into the driveway. Headlights on. Rule 11 had changed. If a hearse pulls into the driveway after midnight, check whether the driver casts a reflection in the lobby glass. Do not go outside. We watched on the monitor. The hearse stopped under the covered entrance. A driver stepped out. Black suit, black cap, face hidden. The lobby glass reflected the driveway behind him. It reflected the hearse. It reflected the porch lights. It did not reflect the driver. Bad? I asked. Teresa gave me a look. The driver walked to the rear of the hearse and opened it. A casket slid out on rollers. On the side of the casket was a brass nameplate. This time I could read it on camera. Marcus Hale, my name. The office phone rang. Once, twice, 3. I answered because sometimes not answering was worse. Mr. Vale said, open the preparation room. My hand went cold. Rule 14. Where is Clara Mercer's ring? Silence. Then Mr. Vale said, buried with her. I hung up. The hearse driver on the monitor turned toward the lobby camera. The casket with my name slid another inch out. The phone rang again. Once, twice, 3. I answered. Mr. Vale said, open the preparation room. Where is Clara Mercer's ring? This time he whispered, in my pocket. Teresa held out her hand for the phone. I gave it to her. She said, then bring it back, Arthur. So Mr. Vale had a first name. The line went silent. Teresa listened. Her face changed. She hung up gently. What did he say? He cried. Outside, the hearse vanished. So did the casket. At 1:04, the basement preparation room light turned on. Rule 13 had changed. If the basement preparation room light is on, check the top stair. If there is water, do not descend. If there is rice, sweep it into the hallway. Rice, I said. Teresa looked grim. Wedding rice. We approached the basement stairs. The light below glowed white through the frosted preparation room window. At the top stair, scattered across the wood, lay dry white rice, hundreds of grains. Teresa handed me a broom from the hallway closet. Do not touch it with your hands. I swept the rice into the hallway. As each grain crossed the threshold from stair to hall, it turned black, not burned, black like old blood. From downstairs, Clara whispered, "He said forever," Teresa answered. Men say many things in funeral homes. The preparation room light flickered. The rice became beetles, tiny black beetles spilling across the hallway floor. Teresa stomped one with her shoe. The rest turned back into rice. We swept until the top stair was clear. The basement light went out. At 1:47, the garage camera showed 3 hearses again. Rule 12 had changed. If the garage contains 3 hearses, identify which one has no license plate. Do not look inside it. We checked the monitor. Hearse 1. Old black Cadillac. Plate visible. Hearse 2. Newer black Lincoln. Plate visible. Hearse 3. Long old, curtains drawn. No plate. I wrote in the log. 1:47 a.m. Third hearse present. No plate. Interior not checked. On the monitor, the third hearse's rear door opened. A hand reached out. White glove. Then another. The casket inside began knocking. Rule 15 had changed too. If someone knocks from inside a closed casket, ask who closed the lid. Do not open it. The knocking came through the camera speaker. Tap, tap, tap. I said toward the monitor, feeling ridiculous. Who closed the lid? The casket stopped knocking. Then a voice inside said, "You did." No, I didn't. Teresa put one hand over my mouth. Too late, the third hearse camera feed went black. From somewhere inside the funeral home, a casket lid creaked open. Teresa slowly lowered her hand. Do not correct the dead when they assign blame. I didn't know. You will. At 2:17, we went to the portrait. Night 2. Rule 18 said, at 2:17 a.m. Look at the portrait, but do not blink until the woman looks away. I hated this rule most. The portrait above the lobby fireplace showed the founders. Arthur Vale Sr. and Clara Mercer? No. I looked closer. The painted man was not Mr. Vale. Older, stern, heavy jaw, a black suit, one hand resting on the back of a chair. The painted woman sat in the chair. She looked younger than him by too much. Her dark hair was pinned up. Her left hand rested in her lap, all fingers intact, a ring on her finger. Teresa stood beside me. Don't blink. At exactly 2:17, the painted woman turned her eyes toward us. My body screamed to look away. I forced my eyes open. The painting changed slowly. The woman's face became Clara's. The man's hand on the chair tightened. His painted fingers dug into the painted wood. The ring on Clara's finger glinted. Then the painted man looked at me. My eyes watered. Do not blink until the woman looks away. The man smiled. The painting's background changed from fireplace dark to preparation room white. Clara stood now. The painted man held her wrist. In his other hand was a scalpel. My eyes burned. Tears spilled down my cheeks. Still no blink. Clara looked at Teresa, then at me, then down at her own ring. The painted scalpel came down. Clara's mouth opened in a silent scream. Her finger disappeared. The ring fell into a metal dish. The painted woman looked away. I blinked so hard pain shot through my face. The portrait returned to normal. Almost. Clara's left hand in the painting now had 4 fingers. Teresa whispered, "Now you know." What happened to her? She was Mercer, he was Vale. Marriage would have joined the names, business, property, cemetery rights, everything. Mr. Vale killed her? Not the Mr. Vale you met, his grandfather, but houses inherit sins like families do. At 2:40, the funeral home phone rang again. 3 rings. I picked up. Mr. Vale said, "I'm coming in." Teresa stiffened. "Which door?" "Front." "Don't." His voice was shaking. "I have the ring." The line went dead. On the porch monitor, Mr. Vale's car pulled into the driveway, headlights on. He stepped out slowly, cane in one hand. He cast a reflection in the lobby glass. He looked alive, old, terrified. He held something small in his other hand. The front doors opened for him. Rule 1 said enter and leave only through the south side door after sundown. But that was for us. Maybe. Mr. Vale walked into the lobby. Teresa unlocked the office door before I could stop her. "Don't go alone," she said, so we went together. Mr. Vale stood beneath the portrait, breathing hard. He opened his hand. A ring sat on his palm. Gold, dark stone, too small to matter as much as it did. "Where was it?" Teresa asked. "In my father's safe," he said. "You told me it was lost." "I told myself it was." The building creaked. The guest book opened. Pages flipped so fast they tore. Mr. Vale looked at me. "I'm sorry I lied. That makes one of us." He almost smiled, then looked toward viewing room B. "Did you bring flowers?" "Yes." "White?" "Yes." "Good." Teresa took the ring from him. The moment it left his hand, the basement preparation room light turned on. The chapel organ began playing. The guest book pages stopped on one name. Clara Mercer. Mr. Vale whispered, "She wants a service." Teresa shook her head. "No, she wants a witness." The hallway to viewing room B stretched long and dark. At the far end, the door stood open. It was 2:55, outside the permitted time. Rule 9 said viewing room B may be entered only between 11:30 and midnight. Teresa held the ring. Mr. Vale held his cane. I held the rule sheet. None of us moved. From room B, Clara whispered, "Arthur." Mr. Vale flinched. Not his name, maybe. His grandfather's. The office phone rang behind us. Once, twice, 3. No one answered. 4th ring, 5th, 6th. The sound changed lower and wet. Mr. Vale said, "If we don't return the ring tonight, the 3rd night will be burial." "What does that mean?" He looked at the cemetery gate monitor. The gate was open, and this time the figures among the headstones were walking down. At 3:03, we broke Rule 9, not because we wanted to, because sometimes old rules are written by people who survived by postponing the worst thing. Teresa stepped into viewing room B first. I followed. Mr. Vale came last. The room was different. No vanity, no chairs, no lamps. It was the preparation room, white tile, steel table, drain in the floor, cabinets, bright surgical light. But we were still on the 1st floor. Clara Mercer lay on the table in her white dress, eyes open, veil pulled back. She looked young, too young. Her left hand rested on her stomach, 4 fingers. Teresa approached slowly. "We brought flowers," she said. The carnations I had placed earlier were beside Clara's head, fresh and white, not wilted. Teresa set the ring beside them. Clara's eyes moved, not to Teresa, to Mr. Vale. His face collapsed. "I am not him," he whispered. Clara's mouth opened. A voice came out dry and broken. "Blood remembers," he nodded. "Yes." "Name remembers." "Yes." House remembers. He lowered his head. Yes. Her eyes shifted to me. Watchman. I could barely speak. Yes. Sign. The guest book appeared on the steel table beside her. Open. The pen lay across the page. Teresa whispered, "Careful." The page showed one blank line. Above it, "Witness, not guest, not family. Witness." I wrote my name. Marcus Hale. The ink did not bleed. Clara closed her eyes. Teresa slid the ring onto Clara's missing finger. There was no finger there. The ring hovered for a second in empty air. Then a pale shape formed beneath it. Bone, skin, finger, hole. The room exhaled. The preparation room illusion vanished. Viewing room B returned. Soft lamps, chairs, framed landscapes. Clara stood in the center of the room, fully visible now, veil lifted. She was not peaceful. Do not believe people become peaceful just because someone returns what was stolen. She looked furious, but the fury had direction now. She looked at Mr. Vale and said, "Bring him tomorrow." Mr. Vale went gray. "He's dead," Clara smiled. "So am I." Then she vanished. The ring fell to the carpet. This time, it was blackened and cracked. Teresa picked it up with a tissue. At 3:40, Mr. Vale left through the south side door, not the front. He did not speak much. Before going, he looked at me. "If the Night 3 instructions mention burial, they will." He nodded. "If they mention my grandfather by name, do not read it aloud." "Why?" "Because he has been waiting for someone to invite him properly." Teresa crossed her arms. "And if the house says to bring him?" Mr. Vale looked toward the cemetery. "Then it has already dug." At 4:12, Teresa left. Her rule had been clear in a way mine wasn't. She would not stay past midnight. She had already broken that by more than 4 hours. At the south door, she stopped. "Do you have someone to call tomorrow?" "For what?" "To say goodbye if you're stupid enough to come back." I said nothing. She sighed. "Don't come alone." "Again?" "Especially again." Then she left. The last 2 hours of night 2 were quiet. Not safe. Quiet. The guest book stayed closed. The chapel organ stayed silent. The garage held 2 hearses. Only 2. The basement light remained off. At 5:30, the office clock, still face down from the first night, began ticking again. I turned it carefully upright. The time was correct. At 5:55, I read the Night 2 instructions again, because I had learned by then that mornings changed paper before they changed rooms. At 6 o'clock, the south door unlocked. The sheet rewrote itself in my hands. The heading became Night 3. Instructions, Final Service. I did not want to read them. I read them anyway. Rule 1. Enter before sunset with 1 living witness and 1 dead name. Rule 2. Bring black flowers. White flowers are no longer accepted. Rule 3. Do not allow Arthur Vale Sr. to be called Mr. Vale. Rule 4. The guest book must be opened by the watchman, but the first signature must not be living. Rule 5. The chapel doors must remain open once the service begins. Rule 6. If the organ plays without a body present, the wrong funeral has started. Rule 7. If Clara Mercer appears in white, follow her. If she appears in black, hide. Rule 8. Viewing room A is for family. Viewing room B is for evidence. Rule 9. The preparation room may be entered only after the basement lights turn red. Rule 10. If the cemetery gate is open before midnight, count the graves in the Vale row. Rule 11. There should be 1 empty grave. Rule 12. If there are 2, do not stand between them. Rule 13. If the watchman from night 1 asks to relieve you, give him your keys, but not your name. Rule 14. If the watchman from night 2 asks to relieve you, give him nothing. Rule 15. If Mr. Vale calls, ask which Mr. Vale. Rule 16. If Arthur Vale Sr. calls, let it ring. Rule 17. If Clara asks for burial, ask whose. Rule 18. If the casket nameplate shows your name, turn it over and keep walking. Rule 19. If the nameplate shows no name, the house has chosen. Rule 20. If the embalming machine starts during the service, everyone in the chapel must face forward. Rule 21. If the dead arrive late, do not restart the hymn. Rule 22. At 2:17 a.m., blink once when the woman in the portrait smiles. Rule 23. If the rules change during the night, stop reading. Rule 24. The final door is not in the basement. Rule 25. The final door is not in the chapel. Rule 26. The final door is wherever the ring is placed. Rule 27. Do not let the first watchman carry the ring. Rule 28. Do not let the second watchman carry the flowers. Rule 29. Do not let Arthur Vale Sr. leave with either. Rule 30. When morning comes, do not read the rules again. At the bottom, Clara Mercer had written one final line by hand. Bring him down, or I come up. I looked at the monitor. Outside the south side door, in the morning light, there were now 2 versions of me waiting. One wore the same clothes from night 1. The other was soaked through, holding wilted white carnations in one hand. The watchman from the first night smiled. The watchman from the second night did not. He looked terrified, and between them, lying on the pavement, was Clara Mercer's ring. I stared at the south door monitor until my eyes hurt. 2 versions of me stood outside in the morning light. The first one looked exactly like I had after night 1. Same jacket, same security badge, same pale, exhausted face. Same little smile that made my stomach twist because it looked almost friendly. The second version looked like me after night 2. Soaked through. Hair plastered to my forehead. White carnations wilted black in one hand. No smile. That one looked terrified. Between them, on the pavement outside the south side door, lay Clara Mercer's ring. Blackened, cracked, waiting. The night 3 instructions shook in my hands. Rule 13. If the watchman from night 1 asks to relieve you, give him your keys, but not your name. Rule 14. If the watchman from night 2 asks to relieve you, give him nothing. Rule 27. Do not let the first watchman carry the ring. Rule 28. Do not let the second watchman carry the flowers. The first watchman raised one hand and waved at the camera. The second watchman shook his head slowly, not at the first one, at me. Then the office phone rang. Once, twice, 3. I picked it up. Vale and Mercer Funeral Services. My own voice answered. Long night? I looked at the monitor. The smiling version of me had his hand to his ear, even though he held no phone. I said nothing. The voice on the phone chuckled. Come on, you know how this works. Shift's over. Let me relieve you. I looked at Rule 13. If the watchman from night 1 asks to relieve you, give him your keys, but not your name. He had asked. My keys were in my hand. My name was still mine. I didn't know whether giving the keys through the door counted as letting him in. I didn't know if refusing would break the rule. The house loved making every correct answer feel like a trap. The phone voice said, I can take over from here. The second watchman outside stepped forward fast and slammed both hands against the south door glass. No sound came through the monitor, but I could read his mouth. Don't. The first watchman turned toward him, smiling. Then the second watchman looked directly into the camera and mouthed, "Give him the wrong keys." That was when I understood something. The watchman from night 2 was not safe. Rule 14 said give him nothing, but that didn't mean he couldn't warn me. Maybe he was the part of me that had learned. Maybe he was another trick. Maybe both. I opened the desk drawer and found the old spare keys Mr. Vale had not given me. Display keys, maybe. Decorative. The kind that came with antique cabinets and office furniture. Not the real building keys. I took them to the south hallway. I did not open the door fully. I undid the chain only enough to create a narrow gap and slid the wrong keys through with my foot. The first watchman bent and picked them up. "Thanks," he said in my voice. "What's your name?" he asked. I shut the door. The wrong keys scraped against the lock outside. Nothing happened. The first watchman laughed softly. Then his face changed. Not into a monster. Worse, into annoyance. My annoyance. My face when a vending machine eats money. My face when a door won't open. My face when the world doesn't cooperate fast enough. He looked into the camera. Rude. The second watchman crouched and picked up Clara's ring from the pavement. Rule 14. Give him nothing. Rule 27. Do not let the first watchman carry the ring. The rule did not say the second couldn't touch the ring, but Rule 28 said do not let the second watchman carry the flowers. He held only the ring. The second watchman pressed it against the bottom of the door. It slid underneath, scraping across the threshold and stopping near my boot. I picked it up with a tissue. It was freezing cold. Outside, the second watchman looked relieved. The first one turned toward him. The camera flickered. When the feed steadied, both versions of me were gone. Only the wilted white carnations remained on the pavement. I did not pick them up. I left through the chapel again, not through the south door, not past the flowers. The chapel was empty in the gray morning. No casket, no organ music, no mourners. The rear exit opened easily, and I walked out into the cemetery, circled the church, and came back to my car from the road. I looked once at the funeral home before driving away. In the second-floor window, behind the fourth porch light that should not have existed, Clara Mercer stood in white. She lifted her left hand. The ring was not on it anymore. It was in my coat pocket. I drove home with one hand on that pocket the entire time. I didn't sleep, not properly. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the night 3 instructions. Bring black flowers. 1 living witness. 1 dead name. Do not allow Arthur Vale Sr. to be called Mr. Vale. The first problem was the flowers. The second was the witness. The third was the dead name. By noon, I had called Teresa 6 times. She answered on the 7th. "No," she said. "I didn't ask yet." "You're calling because you read night 3. "Yes." "No." "Teresa, absolutely not. The rule says 1 living witness. Then bring a lawyer." "Will a lawyer stay if the funeral home starts writing names in the guest book by itself?" She was quiet. Fair. I heard her light a cigarette. Then she said, "What else?" 1 dead name. She exhaled smoke into the phone. Arthur Vale Sr. That's what I thought. Don't say it in the building unless a rule requires it. Mr. Vale said that. Arthur Vale Sr. liked being announced. Why? Because the dead who think they're important get stronger when rooms recognize them. I sat at my kitchen table with the blackened ring in front of me. "What did he do to Clara?" Teresa was silent so long I thought she might hang up. Then she said, "He owned half the funeral home. She owned the other half through the Mercer side. Clara was supposed to marry his son, Arthur's son, not the old man. Marriage would have joined Vale and Mercer properly. But Clara found out Arthur Sr. had been using the preparation room for things that didn't belong in funeral work." "What things?" "Keeping people from leaving." The room around me seemed to get colder. Teresa continued, "Not bodies, families, names, rings, hair, personal effects. He believed grief could bind people to a house if you took the right piece before burial." "That sounds insane." "It is. It also worked often enough for him to keep doing it." I looked at the ring. He took Clara's ring and her finger so no one could say it was removed gently. I swallowed. Why? Because she was going to expose him. She was going to break the partnership and leave with his son. The night before the wedding, she disappeared. Death certificate said sudden heart failure. Private viewing, closed casket, burial handled in-house. By him. Yes. And Mr. Vale now? Arthur Vale's grandson. He inherited the house and the debt. Some families inherit money. Some inherit locked rooms. I looked at the night 3 rules spread beside the ring. "Will you come?" she cursed softly, then said, "I'll come until the service begins." That's not what the rule says. The rule says enter with a living witness. It does not say the witness has to stay until the end. Teresa, I am old, not stupid. I almost laughed. Almost. What about black flowers? Not lilies. I know. Black calla lilies if you can find them. If not, black roses. If not, white flowers wrapped in black cloth. But that's weaker. What are the flowers for? This time, she answered immediately. The guilty. At 6 p.m., I bought black roses from a florist who asked too many questions. At 7:30, I met Teresa outside the funeral home. She wore the same gray coat, same rubber-soled shoes, same expression that said she had been regretting this since she agreed. In one hand, she carried the mop handle. In the other, she held a small black notebook. "What's that?" I asked. "Names I never said out loud." "That sounds useful. It's dangerous. Everything tonight is dangerous." "Then stop talking like danger is one size." The sky was still dimly blue, sunset sinking behind the cemetery hill. The funeral home looked almost peaceful. The porch light was white. Mr. Vale stood beside the front steps, not by the south door, the front steps. He looked smaller than he had the first night. His black coat hung loose. His cane trembled slightly in one hand. In the other, he held a folded document. Teresa stiffened when she saw him. "You came," Mr. Vale nodded. "I was summoned." "By who?" I asked. He looked up at the second-floor window. "Her." I checked the night 3 instructions. Rule 1, enter before sunset with one living witness and one dead name. Mr. Vale was alive. Teresa was alive. The dead name was the problem. I looked at him. "What was your grandfather's full name?" He closed his eyes. "Arthur Elias Vale." The porch light flickered yellow. Teresa whispered, "Don't say it again." Too late, maybe. The funeral home had heard. The south side door clicked open by itself, not the front. Good. Maybe. We entered through the south side door before the last light left the sky. The office lamp was already on. The black folder lay open on the desk. The night 3 rules were the same. No changes. That almost scared me more. The guest book sat in the lobby, closed. The black roses in my hand felt heavier than they should. Mr. Vale looked at them. "Those are for him." Teresa said that. She would know. Teresa did not smile. At 9 o'clock, I locked the front doors. Only once. The moment the bolt clicked, the chapel organ began playing. Rule 6. If the organ plays without a body present, the wrong funeral has started. I checked the chapel monitor. The organ keys moved by themselves. The platform was empty. No casket, no body, wrong funeral. "What do we do?" I asked. Mr. Vale went pale. Teresa opened her black notebook. "Stop the hymn before the house chooses a body." "How?" "Put one there." I stared at her. "No, not a corpse," she snapped. "A name." Rule 4. The guest book must be opened by the watchman, but the first signature must not be living. One dead name. My hand went cold. "That's why it needs the name." Mr. Vale nodded once. "If the dead sign first, the service belongs to them." "And if I sign first?" Teresa looked at me. "Then the casket gets your name before midnight." I went to the lobby. The guest book was closed. The organ played louder from the chapel. I opened the guest book. The first page was blank, except for a line at the top. Service of Remembrance. The pen waited. I did not write Arthur Vale Sr. Mr. Vale had warned me not to read that name aloud. The rule said one dead name, not necessarily spoken. I wrote, Arthur Elias Vale. The ink sank into the paper. The organ stopped mid-note. The lobby lights dimmed. The guest book page turned by itself. Under the name, a second line appeared. Present. From the chapel, a man laughed. Not loudly, politely, like someone had just heard a clever toast. Mr. Vale gripped his cane until his knuckles whitened. My God. Teresa closed the guest book. No, she said, not in this house. At 9:33, the chapel doors opened by themselves. Rule 5. The chapel doors must remain open once the service begins. They opened wide. Inside, the chapel had changed. The rows of chairs were full. Not faceless this time. Every seat held someone visible, some modern, some old. Some dressed in funeral clothes from decades apart. Women in veils, men in dark suits, children in stiff collars, old mourners, young mourners, families, all quiet, all facing forward. On the platform sat a casket, closed, dark wood, black roses arranged across the lid. Not mine. Mine were still in my hand. An older man stood beside the casket, tall, broad, gray beard, black suit, one hand resting on the lid like he owned it. I knew before anyone told me. Arthur Vale Sr. Do not allow him to be called Mr. Vale. The old man smiled at us. Family, he said warmly. Mr. Vale made a sound like he had been punched. Teresa stepped forward. No titles tonight, Arthur. Every head in the chapel turned toward her. Arthur's smile tightened. Teresa Locke, still cleaning up after better people. She lifted the mop handle. I've cleaned worse than you. Arthur laughed. The chapel temperature dropped. He looked at me next. The watchman. I said nothing. Marcus Hale. My name in his mouth felt like a hand around my throat. Rule 13 and 14 involved watchmen. Rule 18 involved casket nameplates. Rule 29 said do not let Arthur Vale Sr. leave with either the ring or the flowers. I held the black roses tighter. Arthur's eyes dropped to them. Those are mine. No. His smile faded. From the casket came one knock. Tap. Every mourner faced forward again. Rule 15 from the previous nights no longer applied directly, but I still remembered. If someone knocks from inside a closed casket, do not answer unless you personally close the lid. I did not answer. Arthur did. Not yet. The casket went still. At 10:06, the funeral home phone rang. We were still standing at the back of the chapel. None of us had stepped fully inside yet. I could see the office down the hall, the phone vibrating on the desk. Once, twice, 3, Rule 15. If Mr. Vale calls, ask which Mr. Vale. The living Mr. Vale stood beside me, so whoever called was either not him or not living, or both. I went to the office and picked up on the third ring. Vale and Mercer Funeral Services. Mr. Vale's voice said, "Open the preparation room." "Which Mr. Vale?" A pause. Then a warm, older voice answered, "The first." I hung up. The phone rang again immediately. Once, twice, 3. I picked up. The same voice said, "You are making this uncivil." I said nothing. Do you know what Clara was before this house gave her dignity? I hung up. The phone rang. Once, twice, 3. I picked up. Arthur whispered, "A bride who forgot her place." I set the receiver down without hanging up and unplugged the phone. It continued whispering on the desk. "Everyone has a place." At 10:30, Clara appeared in white. Rule 7. If Clara Mercer appears in white, follow her. If she appears in black, hide. She stood at the end of the hallway near viewing room B, wearing the same white funeral dress, veil lifted, left hand whole but ringless. Her eyes were on me. Not Teresa, not Mr. Vale, me. Then she turned and walked toward viewing room B. We followed, all 3 of us. Inside, the room was not a viewing room anymore. It was evidence. Rule 8. Viewing room A is for family. Viewing room B is for evidence. The soft lamps were gone. The walls were covered in papers, death certificates, property deeds, marriage announcements, funeral ledgers, photographs, receipts, locks of hair tied with ribbon, wedding invitations. Clara stood beside a table in the center. On it lay a small metal box. Teresa whispered, "That's from his safe." Mr. Vale looked like he might collapse. "I thought I emptied it." Clara turned toward him. Her voice was faint but clear. "Men like Arthur always keep a second box." The box opened by itself. Inside were rings, dozens of them, gold bands, silver bands, engagement rings, signet rings, a child's tiny ring, each tied to a name tag. Clara's ring pulsed warm in my pocket. Mr. Vale sank into a chair. "Oh God." Teresa opened her black notebook and began copying names. I looked at Clara. "What do you want me to do?" She pointed to the black roses, then to the box. "The flowers are for the guilty, not the dead." I placed the black roses inside the metal box on top of the stolen rings. The moment the petals touched the jewelry, every paper on the wall flipped over. On the back of each document, written in different hands, was one sentence. "He kept part of me." The funeral home groaned. From the chapel, Arthur screamed, not in pain, in anger. Clara looked at me. "Bring him down." Then she vanished. At 11:11, the cemetery gate opened. Too early. Rule 10. If the cemetery gate is open before midnight, count the graves in the Vale row. Teresa, Mr. Vale and I went out the rear chapel door into the cemetery. I did not want to leave the house, but the rule was clear. The Vale row sat halfway up the hill under a bare oak tree. Old stones, new stones, Vale, Vale, Vale. The newest grave belonged to Arthur Vale III, Mr. Vale's father. The oldest large monument belonged to Arthur Elias Vale. I did not say the name aloud. I counted graves in the Vale row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then an empty grave, fresh, rectangular, dug at the end of the row. Rule 11. there should be one empty grave. There was one, for about 5 seconds. Then the ground opened beside it. A second empty grave split the wet earth. Rule 12, if there are two, do not stand between them. I grabbed Teresa's sleeve and pulled her back. Mister. Vale stood frozen at the edge. The two graves lay parallel, side by side, not between them. Good. Then a third line split the ground. Not a grave. A trench connecting the two. The earth was trying to put him between them. Teresa struck the ground with the mop handle. Arthur, you greedy old bastard! The trench stopped widening. From inside the first grave, a man's voice said, "Family plot." From inside the second, my own voice said, "Watchman's plot." I backed away. Mr. Vale whispered, "One is for him." "And one?" I asked. He looked at me. "For whoever signs last. The guest book, the witness line, my name." The cemetery gates slammed shut. The graves remained open. At midnight, the service began. We returned to the chapel because every other door in the funeral home had locked itself. The mourners were still seated. Arthur stood beside the casket. The casket nameplate faced the aisle. Rule 18. If the casket nameplate shows your name, turn it over and keep walking. I walked down the aisle just close enough to read it. Marcus Hale. Of course, I did not stop. I took a prayer card from a chair, folded it over my fingers, and flipped the nameplate face down without touching it directly. The casket knocked once. Tap. I kept walking. On the other side of the platform, the nameplate slid out again. This time, blank. Rule 19. If the nameplate shows no name, the house has chosen. Teresa saw it. Chosen who? The chapel door slammed shut, even though Rule 5 said they must remain open once the service began. Arthur smiled. The house has chosen its witness. Every mourner turned toward me. The organ played one low note. Wrong funeral. No, there was a body present. Maybe mine, if they got their way. Mr. Vale stepped into the aisle. No. Arthur's eyes moved to his grandson. You have worn my name badly. Good. The word rang strangely in the chapel. Arthur's smile vanished. Mr. Vale lifted Clara's cracked ring from where I had given it back to him before we entered. I had not even realized he still had it. Rule 26. The final door is wherever the ring is placed. Rule 29. Do not let Arthur Vale Sr. leave with either. Where are you placing that? I asked. Mr. Vale did not look at me. Where it should have been placed a century ago. Clara appeared at the back of the chapel, this time in black. Rule 7. If Clara appears in black, hide. Teresa saw her too. Down! She shoved me into the space between two rows of chairs. Mr. Vale did not hide. He stood in the aisle holding the ring. Clara in black walked down the center aisle. Not like a bride, not like a corpse, like a judge. The mourners lowered their heads as she passed. Arthur backed away from the casket. For the first time, he looked afraid. Clara, he said. She did not answer. He tried again. Mrs. Vale. The chapel cracked. Wood split. Stained glass rattled. Teresa whispered, Wrong name. Clara raised one black-gloved hand. Arthur's mouth shut. Not by choice. His lips sealed like wax. Mr. Vale placed the cracked ring on the closed casket lid. The final door is wherever the ring is placed. The casket lid became a door, not opening upward, opening downward. The top of the casket sank inward into darkness, and beneath it I saw stairs. Basement stairs, cemetery earth, preparation room tile, all layered together. The final door was not in the basement. not in the chapel. It was where the ring was placed. Arthur lunged toward the casket. Teresa swung the mop handle and caught him across the chest. He staggered, not because she was strong, because the handle had been in this house longer than some of the ghosts. Arthur hissed at her. "Servant!" Teresa hit him again. "Custodian!" At 12:37, the embalming machine started during the service. Rule 20. If the embalming machine starts during the service, everyone in the chapel must face forward. The sound came from everywhere. Wet mechanical pumping. Below, behind, inside the walls. The mourners all faced forward. Teresa grabbed my collar and forced me upright, then turned me toward the platform. Mr. Vale faced forward. Clara faced forward. Even Arthur, still gagged by whatever Clara had done, slowly turned toward the casket door. The machine pumped. Once, twice, again, the casket door widened. From inside came a smell of formaldehyde, soil, and lilies. A hand rose from the darkness, not Clara's, a man's, old, gray, strong. Arthur's body in the ground was answering Arthur's spirit in the chapel. The dead arrive late, Rule 21 said. Do not restart the hymn. The organ had gone silent. No one touched it. The hand gripped the casket edge. Then another. A corpse in a rotted black suit pulled itself up through the door. Arthur Vale Sr. The thing standing beside the casket, the polished version in funeral clothes, stared at the body crawling out. Two Arthurs, one preserved by pride, one preserved by the grave. The corpse opened its mouth. Dirt spilled out. Clara pointed at the living-looking Arthur. The corpse turned. It smiled. Then it grabbed its own ghost by the throat. The chapel erupted. Mourners screamed, not all, only the ones who had been bound to him. The stolen rings in viewing room B began chiming like bells. Teresa shouted, "Flowers!" The black roses, the flowers for the guilty, they were still in the evidence box. No, I ran. The chapel doors were supposed to stay open. They were shut. I slammed into them with my shoulder. They opened. Behind me, Arthur's ghost tore free from the corpse and crawled up the wall like a shadow with bones. Clara screamed without sound. I ran down the hallway to viewing room B. The evidence room was still there. The metal box sat open on the table, black roses across the rings. The roses were blooming, not dying. Blooming wider, darker, petals opening like mouths. I grabbed the entire box. Rule 28. Do not let the second watchman carry the flowers. I was the real watchman. I hoped. In the hallway mirror, I saw the second watchman behind me, soaked, holding out his hands. For a second, I almost gave him the box. He shook his head. Rule 14. Give him nothing. I ran past him. He stayed in the mirror. When I reached the chapel, Arthur's ghost had one hand on the rear exit. Rule 29. Do not let Arthur Vale Sr. leave with either. He was trying to leave without the ring or flowers. But if he left, the house would still belong to him. I threw the box of black roses and stolen rings into the aisle. The moment it hit the carpet, every ring rolled out, dozens of them. Each found a mourner. Each circled a finger that had been missing something for years. The bound mourners stopped screaming. One by one, they stood. Arthur froze at the rear exit. The corpse on the platform pointed at him. Clara walked forward in black. Mr. Vale lifted the cracked ring from the casket door and held it out to her. She did not take it. Instead, she looked at me. Ask. Rule 17. If Clara asks for burial, ask whose. She had not said burial, but this was the moment. I said, "Whose burial?" Clara turned to Arthur. His. The two empty graves outside came to mind. One for him, one for whoever signed last. I had signed witness. Not last, maybe. Not if someone else signed. I grabbed the guest book from the chapel lectern. It had appeared there as if it had always belonged. The witness page showed my name. Under it, blank lines. Arthur's ghost reached for the book. I pulled it back. "No," Teresa shouted. "The first signature must not be living." That was for the opening. Then close it with the dead. I looked at Mr. Vale. He understood before I did. His face went calm. "No," I said. He took the pen from my hand. "My family opened the wound," he said. "My family closes it. Mr. Vale," he looked at me sharply. "Which one?" "The rule. If Mr. Vale calls, ask which Mr. Vale. Maybe names mattered even here." "Arthur Vale," I said carefully. "The living one." He nodded, then wrote his name beneath mine. Arthur James Vale. The house groaned. "No," Teresa whispered. "He's living." Mr. Vale said, "Not for long." Arthur Sr.'s ghost shrieked through sealed lips. The corpse on the platform collapsed into the casket door, dragging at the air like it was pulling a net. The ring in Mr. Vale's hand cracked fully in half. The final door widened. Clara took one half of the ring. Mr. Vale held the other. Teresa grabbed him. "You idiot," he smiled sadly. "You always were the kindest person in this house. Don't make me sentimental now." I wouldn't dare. Arthur Sr.'s ghost shot across the chapel ceiling toward the lobby, toward the front doors, toward escape. The first watchman appeared at the chapel entrance, smiling, keys in hand. The wrong keys. He held the doors open for Arthur. Rule 13. If the watchman from night 1 asks to relieve you, give him your keys but not your name. I had given keys, wrong keys. Now he was using them anyway. I ran after him. The second watchman appeared from the hallway and slammed into the first. Both versions of me hit the wall. The first smiled as he fought. The second looked terrified, but held on. The flowers were no longer in his hands. Good. I reached the chapel entrance and kicked the wrong keys across the floor. They slid under the casket door and vanished. The first watchman screamed in my voice. The second dragged him backward into the mirror-dark hallway. Both disappeared. Arthur Sr.'s ghost struck the closed chapel doors like smoke hitting glass. He could not leave. The mourners turned as one. Every person he had kept part of lifted a hand. Rings glinted, hair ribbons unwound, lockets opened, name tags burned. Arthur Sr. came apart slowly, not like dust, like paperwork being torn. Strips of him peeled away, each covered in signatures, death dates, receipts, contracts, property lines, false certificates. He tried to speak. Clara let him, his mouth unsealed. He gasped one word. "Mine." Clara stepped close. "No." Then the casket door opened under him. The corpse's hands reached up. The mourners pushed. Arthur Sr. went down into the final door, with his own body waiting below. He did not fall. He was filed away. That is the only way to explain it. Sorted, recorded, buried properly at last. The door slammed shut. The casket became a casket again. The ring was gone. Both halves. Mr. Vale collapsed. Teresa caught him before he hit the floor. I ran to help. His face was gray. Too gray. "Call an ambulance," I said. He shook his head. "Not in this house." Then outside. He looked at Clara. She stood at the edge of the platform in white now. Not black. White, but not bridal. Not funeral. Just white. Clean. He whispered, "Is it done?" Clara did not smile, but she nodded. Then she looked at me. "Witness." I said. Yes. Right. The logbook appeared on the casket lid. I did not question it. I opened to the final page. The pen lay there. I wrote what I had seen. Not everything. Enough. Arthur Elias Vale murdered Clara Mercer and bound the house through stolen keepsakes, false records, and improper burial. Clara Mercer's ring was returned. The stolen items were witnessed. Arthur Elias Vale was named for burial. The service is complete. The house shook. The chapel doors opened. The mourners began leaving. Not through the front, not through the rear. They walked toward the walls, the windows, the portrait, the floor, each disappearing into whatever part of the house had kept them. Some looked relieved. Some looked angry. Some looked lost. None looked peaceful, exactly. Peace is too simple a word. Teresa lowered Mr. Vale into the front row. He was breathing, but barely. "Stubborn old fool," she whispered. He squeezed her hand. At 2:17, the portrait changed one last time. Rule 22. At 2:17 a.m., blink once when the woman in the portrait smiles. I was still in the chapel, but I could see into the lobby through the open doors. The portrait above the fireplace now showed only Clara. Not Arthur, not the founders. Only Clara Mercer, standing beside a chair, left hand whole, ring gone. She turned her painted face toward me and smiled. I blinked once. The portrait frame cracked down the middle. Then the canvas went blank. At 3 o'clock, the embalming machine stopped. At 3:30, the basement preparation room light turned red. Rule 9 said it could be entered only after the basement lights turned red. None of us wanted to go, but the house was not finished until the evidence had a place. Teresa, Mr. Vale, and I went down together. The preparation room door was open. Inside, the room was clean. Too clean. No bodies. No sheet-covered figures. No machines running. On the steel table lay the metal box from viewing room B, empty now except for the black rose stems. Beside it was a stack of documents tied with black ribbon. Names, proof, a confession written in handwriting that looked like Arthur Sr.'s, though I had no idea how that was possible. Mr. Vale picked it up. "This needs to be found." "By who?" I asked. "Someone official." Teresa snorted. "After 100 years?" Mr. Vale looked at her. "Better late than buried." In the corner of the preparation room, a small door stood open. No stairs behind it, no darkness, just morning light. Impossible because we were underground. Rule 24. The final door is not in the basement. Rule 25. The final door is not in the chapel. Rule 26. The final door is wherever the ring is placed. The ring was gone. So this was not the final door. It was something else. An exit for evidence, maybe. Teresa tossed the black rose stems into the sink. "Don't use that door." I wasn't planning to. Good. We left the documents on the preparation table. At 4:10, police arrived. Not because we called them, because someone had. A neighbor, officially. Reported lights and screaming. The officers came in through the front door, like normal people entering a normal building. They found 3 exhausted adults, a stack of century-old documents in the basement, disturbed cemetery soil, and enough structural damage to condemn the property. They did not find ghosts. They did not find 2 versions of me. They did not find the final door. They found Mr. Vale having what looked like a heart attack. He survived long enough to give a statement, not a full one. Enough. He died in the hospital 2 days later. Official cause: heart failure. I laughed when Teresa told me. Then I felt awful. Then she laughed too, not because it was funny, because sometimes the dead have a sense of symmetry so cruel it becomes comedy. At 5:55, before the police took us out, I returned to the office alone. I had to know. The black folder sat on the desk. The Night 3 instructions were still there. Rule 30 said, "When morning comes, do not read the rules again." So I did not. I closed the folder without looking. The office lamp turned off by itself, not flickered, not died, turned off. The room filled with gray dawn. On the desk, the guest book lay closed. I touched the cover once. "Service complete," I said. Maybe I shouldn't have, but nothing answered. At 6 o'clock, I left through the south side door. No watchman waited outside. No ring on the pavement. No wilted flowers. Only morning, real morning, cold and ordinary. I thought it was over. That's always the most dangerous thought. Vale and Mercer Funeral Services was condemned within a week. The news ran a small story about historic misconduct, mishandled remains, and human remains discovered during a cemetery survey. They did not say ghosts. They did not say Clara Mercer. They did not say Arthur Vale Sr. had been buried twice, once wrong and once properly. The building sat empty for 3 months. Then one night, it burned. Electrical fault, they said. Old wiring, bad luck. The firefighters kept it from spreading to the church and dentist's office, but the funeral home itself was gutted. I drove by the next morning. I don't know why. Teresa was there, standing across the street with a coffee in one hand and a cigarette in the other. "Thought you'd come," she said. "Thought you'd quit smoking. Thought you'd be smarter than to come." We stood together, looking at the burned shell. The sign was gone. The porch had collapsed. The chapel roof had fallen in. But the lobby fireplace still stood, blackened and upright. Above it, the portrait frame hung empty. No canvas, no Clara, no Arthur, just an empty frame. Teresa flicked ash into the gutter. "Good enough." "Is it over?" She gave me a tired look. Nothing old is ever over, but it can be finished. That answer stayed with me. The security company paid me for all 3 nights. Carla called once. She said, "Completion confirmed." I asked how she knew. She said, "The morning instructions didn't come back." Then she hung up. I stopped working security after that. Not immediately, but soon. There are only so many buildings a person can sit in overnight before they start understanding that locked doors are not always keeping danger out. Sometimes they are keeping memories in. Sometimes they are keeping guilt in. Sometimes they are keeping the living from becoming useful to the dead. I still have the black folder. I know I shouldn't. I never meant to take it. But when I got home, after the 3rd night, it was in my bag. I did not open it for almost a year. Then, on the anniversary of night 1, I woke at 2:17 a.m. to the smell of lilies. Not strong, just enough. The folder sat on my kitchen table. I live alone. I know I locked it in a storage box. On the cover, in neat handwriting, was a new line. Morning instructions. I remembered Rule 30. When morning comes, do not read the rules again. So I did not open it. I put the entire folder in a metal trash can behind my building and burned it. The flames turned white for a few seconds, then black, then normal orange. In the ashes, I found one thing that had not burned: a guest book page. Blank except for one line. Witness dismissed. I buried it under a tree. Not in a cemetery. Never in a cemetery. Last month, I passed a new development on the edge of that same town. The funeral home lot had been cleared. A sign out front showed an artist's rendering of townhomes. Clean windows, fresh siding, families walking dogs, children riding bikes. The development name was printed in elegant black letters. Mercer Row, not Vale. Mercer. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I parked across the street and watched for a while. Construction workers moved around in daylight. Normal tools, normal noise, normal life. Then a man in a hard hat carried a blackened metal box out of the dirt near where the basement had been. He opened it, looked inside, frowned, then set it on the ground and called someone over. I drove away before they looked too closely. Some houses inherit sins, some land does too, and sometimes changing the name is not the same as ending the service. So, if you ever agree to watch an empty funeral home for 3 nights, read the rules every evening. If the guest book opens, be careful what you write. If the phone rings, count only what you are told to count. If the chapel organ plays without a body present, the wrong funeral has started. If a dead woman asks for burial, ask whose. And if the rules change each morning, understand what that means. The house is not confused. The house is negotiating. It will revise the terms until someone signs. And once your name is in the book, every door in the building knows how to call you back.